Good morning. I was just waiting for the fog to clear off my glasses. Welcome to First Church Unitarian on this glorious spring day. My name is Larry Kaylor, and I have the honor of serving on your standing committee and your executive team. Well, this is no ordinary day. Back in the sanctuary for the first time, I can show you my smile. My wife calls me Smiley, and it's not because I smile a lot. Yeah, it's nice not to have masks required up here. We get to welcome our choir back today. Is that right? For live singing. Oh my gosh, that's so awesome. I would also like to welcome our remote viewers. I did not forget about you. We're so happy you are with us. And do we have the Menti number?
No Menti number this week.
All right, so I can skip them. There's no Menti number. Okay. All right. Anyway, thank you for joining us. And, you know, I'm not known as a man of a lot of words, but I have a lot to tell you today. Okay, so physical distancing in the sanctuary, you all know about that. We have those green dots. But I just wanted to comment that just be careful when we have groups, larger groups, you need to pay a little more attention to spacing yourself a little bit, maybe go in the next pew, that kind of thing. It happens. And if somebody around you moves, it's only like a reminder that maybe, you know, we all need to just remember to keep the distance. But you all look great today. All right. Hospitality. We really appreciate, and I should start out by thanking so many of you for signing up to usher and offer flowers. You keep us going, and it is just awesome. The ushering job, which is always available online at Hospitality, sign ups on the homepage. Contact our hospitality coordinator at hospitality at fculittle.org. Anyway, the ushering job has gotten really easy. If you were a little put off by it earlier in the year when there was more to it, it's just, you know, you guide people to the green dots and you give them a order of service. I mean, that's so. Please take a look at the website and sign up for that. We'd really appreciate it. We had our wonderful stewardship event about a week ago. If you didn't get your pledge cards in, please remember to do that. And we go from stewardship to our talent auction. Keep that in mind. Think about what you would like to offer. It's only about a month away. I don't have exact dates. I think it starts somewhere around Easter. So, yeah, I can see you're thinking about it already. Okay, that's great. As we do most weeks, I'd like to draw your attention to, there's things that we have in our community matters. Just want to remind you to take a look at that. Tonight, RJAC, it's great to be in the church. Obviously, we have names like Racial Justice Action Committee. We have Environmental Action Group. We have Caring for Our Aging Parents. This is the place to be. So anyway, getting back to Racial Justice Action Committee, tonight, 7 p.m. on Zoom. They're hosting a TED Talk. It's embracing racial justice. And as I mentioned, we also have an environmental action group. They have an event on Tuesday. This is for everybody. And of course, you're always welcome to attend their meetings. But this Tuesday, they have one topic is, but what can one person do? Lynn Courtney will speak at that meeting, and that is based on some work from Project Drawdown. That's Tuesday at 6 o'clock. The the Racial Justice Action Group is the one that is at 7 o'clock tonight, just to keep that straight. And no, maybe it wasn't that much, or was it? Anyway, silence your electronic devices. And enjoy our service in memory of Thich Nhat Hanh.
Breathing in, I calm body and mind. Breathing out, I smile. Dwelling in the present moment, I know this is the only moment. If we are peaceful, if we are happy, we can smile and blossom like a flower. And everyone in our family, our entire society will benefit from our peace. If in our daily life we can smile, if we can be peaceful and happy, not only we, but everyone will profit from it. This is the most basic kind of peace work. We have to be in the present time because only the present is real. Only in the present can we be alive. We do not practice for the sake of the future, to be reborn in paradise. but to be peace, to be compassion, to be joy right now. The words of Thich Nhat Hanh. Let us worship. I'd like to invite Natalie to come up and light our chalice this morning. And as Natalie lights our chalice, please join in the words of our covenant printed in your order of service. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Thank you, Natalie. Welcome, welcome. I join with the choir and Larry in welcoming you to First Church Unitarian here in Littleton, Massachusetts. And now I'm not the only one in the sanctuary. This is so wonderful. Woo. First Sunday back in person since Christmas Eve. Can you believe that? So it's wonderful. And today being the first day of spring makes nice bookends. My name is Lara Hoke, and I'm so happy and lucky to be the minister serving this incredible congregation. If you are new with us this morning, whether here in person in the sanctuary or whether you are online for the first time with us, we welcome you, and we're so glad that you're here. And we hope that if you have any questions about the congregation, one thing you can do online is go to the website, fculittle.org, and there's a lot of information there, and you can contact us there if you wish. Afterwards, for those who are happy to stay around in this weather for a little while, you could probably find some folks outside, including me, if you have more questions about the church or Unitarian Universalism or anything else. So welcome. So yeah, we don't have Menti today, which we were using in the past because we seemingly have found a way to have our remote participants come in through Zoom, which is really exciting, which means that if all goes well, cross your fingers, everything is an experiment, they will be able to participate themselves in Candles of Caring and share their own words, which is really exciting. And I know this screen is still small. It's sort of a proof of concept. Eventually, when we get our new audiovisual equipment, you'll see bigger faces and have an easier chance of seeing who's on Zoom and so on. So that's very exciting. All right, and the kids are with us in the sanctuary through the Anthem this morning, which is also exciting. That's really great. We're so happy to have them here. This is wonderful. All right, so today's service is, as Larry said, in remembrance of the great Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh, who passed away January 22nd at the age of 95. And this, of course, is not in the form today of a traditional Buddhist service, but rather more in a Unitarian Universalist tradition of remembering his teachings, celebrating his life. We can learn so much from him. I've set up a very modest altar in his honor, but as he said of altars, ancestors are not in the altar, they are in your breath, in your step, in your smile. And so that is true for Thich Nhat Hanh as well. But we will remember him today. What a life. Switching to our Judeo-Christian roots, I suppose, you might know that in the Psalms, it says to sing and make a joyful noise unto the Lord. Well, we're getting closer and closer to being able to sing together. Our choir is singing, which is super exciting. And maybe before too long, the congregation will sing. But for now, the congregation can make a joyful noise. So here's what we're going to do today. Because we're still trying to be a little safe in terms of COVID, rather than making too much noise, although I keep forgetting, with your mouth, we hope that you'll make joyful noise with your hands, maybe some with your feet, maybe with little percussion instruments you found in the pews. And what we're going to do is I'm going to call up the recipients of these awards I made for Stewardship Sunday. I made these whimsical trophies, I think it's fair to say, in honor of the videos, the vid hugs that were made for that event. And the winners get a trophy. And I'm going to call you up. And what I'm going to ask is that you just come on up, those of you who are here, and I know not everyone can be here, to come up and find your trophy so that I don't have them in my home for a year like I did last year. Once they're in your hands, it's up to you to figure it out. Okay, so come on up, and as they come up, let's just go ahead and unmute on Zoom and make a joyful noise in celebration and appreciation. Okay, come on up. So we have, I think Doug Sweetser is here for the William Shatner Overacting Award. What?
Oh, we can't do that because we're no, we can't do that. You can't participate.
All right, I call representing the still standing committee singers. We have Laura Simple and Karen Pepersano accepting the Sweet Duds Costume Design Award. Very Kaylor, after today, hope she feels better for the Rosebud Props on the Props Award.
No way.
Mike, Carolyn, Monica, not here in person today for the Well Isn't That Special Effects Award. Artists, singers, Carolyn Curry, she's here accepting for the Here Comes the Waterworks Tearjerker Award. If Carolyn's not here, can somebody else from Artemis?
Wait, she gave it to Artemis.
Yeah, it was.
For the I Want My MTV Music Video Award, representing the Union Jukes, Eric Simple, Jim Garrisano.
You think you did it? Your hair's so long. There's four.
So I invite the children to come on up. Stand, or you can sit on the floor or wherever, or on the bench right in front of me, wherever you're comfortable. So I'm going to read, oh, I'm going to need 3 people to help me.
Can I help us?
Yeah? Wow.
2 more.
You too. You're carrying this. All right, now you're gonna have to wait till I give you, okay? And then when I give you this paper, you're gonna have to hold it up high. Okay? Got it? All right. Okay. That's good. You can hear me? Okay. 6 Crows by Lionni. In a peaceful valley at the foot of Balboa Hills, a farmer cultivated a field of wheat. The soil was fertile and the spring rains had been gentle. Life would have been good and happy if it were not for those 6 noisy crows who nested in a tree nearby. Just when the wheat was about to ripen, the crows descended upon the field and pecked away at the tender grains. The farmer tried to chase the crows away from the field, but no sooner had he returned to his hut than they were back. In desperation, he built a scarecrow. The crows saw it standing in the wheat. Well, it was waving a big stick that this one doesn't have, and they were frightened. They huddled in the tree and wondered what to do. We must scare that thing away, they said, but how? Let's set the field on fire, shouted a crow. But that would end our wheat, said the others. There were many proposals. At last they agreed to make a ferocious kite, and they gathered bark and dry leaves and made a fierce and very ugly bird. The next morning, they flew the kite over the field. The scarecrow didn't budge, but the farmer was very frightened. He ran into his hut and bolted the door tight. I must build a scarier scarecrow, he said. Soon, a giant figure brandishing 2 swords stood in the wheat field. Its angry mouth seemed to grunt. That should do it, said the farmer. But when the crows saw the new menace, they gathered more sticks and more leaves and built an even larger and more ferocious kite. From her nest, in the old tree trunk, the owl had been watching the goings-on. She shook her head. I don't know who's sillier, the farmer or the crows. When she noticed that the wheat was wilting from neglect, she decided to talk to the farmer. Why don't you make peace with the crows? She said. Well, it's too late now, said the farmer angrily. It's never too late to talk things over, said the owl. And then she went to see the crows. What can we do now? Asked the crows, dismayed when they heard that the wheat crop was in danger. Go and talk things over, said the owl. Words can do magic. The crow and the farmer agreed to meet near the owl's nest. While the owl looked on, they talked and talked, first in anger, then more reasonably, and finally like friends. I must confess that I missed your happy cackling, said the farmer. And we missed your wheat, said the crows. Soon they were laughing together. We must thank the owl, said the farmer, but where is she? Her nest is empty. They looked all over. They went to the field, and there stood a giant scarecrow, but something was different. The nasty grin had turned into a happy smile, and the owl was perched on the giant arm. What happened? They asked. Magic, she said. So in this story, the symbols for turning to peace became our scary scarecrow.
There you go.
And last week we talked about what symbolizes peace for us. Do you have yours? So not everyone's here, but those who are have something. So can you hold that up? And what that is? I'll say. Hold it up and I'll hold it up. So for Natalie, it was a flower, and that was her symbol for peace.
I did an earth with the peace sign, to symbolize world peace.
And unfortunately, others aren't here. But you get the idea. Peace comes in many forms, in many ways. Oh, animator? Oh, animator, sorry. So sometimes it's traditional how you see peace, and other times it's not. Thank you. So you guys go back to your seats, and then we'll all go down together after the anthem.
Okay.
Promise
Today, for our offering, I am going to share some excerpts from Thich Nhat Hanh's Two Treasures, Buddhist Teachings on Awakening and True Happiness. He wrote, "Every person, no matter what their wealth, is equally capable of practicing generosity. Whatever we do to ease human suffering and create social justice can be considered practicing generosity. Some practice generosity by giving their time, energy, love, and care their entire lives. If we teach Buddhist philosophy through lectures, but do not practice generosity to ease the suffering of others, we have not yet attained the essence of Buddhism. The Buddha said, 'The donor before giving is glad, while giving is inspired, and after giving is gratified.' This morning's offering for the good works of this congregation will now be given and received in grateful appreciation. Please join in the words of our community response printed in the order of service. We are grateful for the opportunity to give and serve, and grateful for the gifts we have received. May this affirm the ministries of our church community, both within and beyond these walls. Most weeks, this congregation shares a special time to feel again our connections to one another and to that which we consider holy. And it's in this spirit that we share in the candles of caring. If you have an important joy or concern that you would like to share with this gathered beloved community, both here in the sanctuary and gathered virtually as well, we ask that you keep your sharing relatively brief so that more people can be heard. And briefly let us know how to how to direct our thoughts, prayers, or healing wishes. If you are in the sanctuary and wish to share a joy or concern, we will come around to you with a microphone. And if you are online and you'd like to share, you can raise your hand in the participants area or in the reactions area of Zoom. Are there any joys or concerns to share this morning? And we happily welcome baby noises, I should have said.
I'm Ron Willett, and I'm joined with my.
Thank you.
Okay. And I'd like to ask Martha to light one last candle and let this represent all the joys and concerns that are with us this morning, but that remain unspoken. Please join with me in the spirit of meditation or prayer. Once again, we have come together in love and trust, sharing those cares dearest to us with this gathered community, this gathered beloved community. We hold in our thoughts and our prayers those joys and concerns that were spoken aloud this morning, as well as those that remain unspoken as we share together in a time of sacred silence. Amen, and blessed be. Today, we remember together the life of the great Zen master, Thich Nhat Hanh, who died almost 2 months ago on January 22nd at the age of 95. Of course, he is very much still with us in the form of all that he left behind, his writings, his teachings in word and action. He might remind us that he is, as he put it, a continuation, like rain is a continuation of the cloud. He is a continuation, and we are too, in our interbeing and in our completing each other. So Thich Nhat Hanh continues on as ever. We can commune with him in our breathing, in our walking, and our smiling. When I look back at past sermons, apart from words from scriptures, from world religions, there is no one I have quoted more often than Thich Nhat Hanh. In preparing for today, I realized that he has been a bigger influence on my thinking than I had previously realized. And it made me feel that pang of sadness again at his passing. But mostly, it made me feel immense gratitude. Thich Nhat Hanh's students affectionately knew him as Thea, and that is Vietnamese for teacher. So I will refer to him as Thea today, as indeed he was a teacher for all of us. Many of the details from his life that I will share come from the Plum Village website. Thea was born with the family name Nguyen in Vietnam in 1926, the second youngest of 6 children. His father was a government official in the imperial administration under French colonial rule. Thea said that a pivotal moment when he was about 7 or 8 years old, something that we in our culture might call a calling, happened when his older brother, one of his older brothers, brought home a Buddhist magazine. And on the cover was a picture of the Buddha. And the Buddha was sitting there in the grass, looking serene and peaceful and wise, and he was smiling. And young Thea was struck by this and felt that this is the way the world should be, and that he wanted this to be his role in life, to help to make the world more like this, and so different from the life he had known under colonial rule in Vietnam. In an interview with Oprah Winfrey, he actually named this moment of calling as the happiest moment of his childhood. In 1940, during World War II, the Japanese occupied Vietnam, but Thea's desire to become a monk did not waver. He became a novice monk in 1942 when he was 16 years old. And he recalls his time in that temple training very fondly, in spite of the Japanese occupation of the country that continued through World War II. It was a time of rustic, simple living for him. According to his biography on the Plum Village website, Thea witnessed at close hand the Japanese occupation and Great Famine of 1945. Stepping out of the temple, he saw bodies out in the streets of those who had died of hunger and witnessed trucks carrying away dozens of corpses. When the French returned to reclaim Vietnam in 1945, the violence only increased. Although many young monks were tempted by the Marxist pamphlets' call to arms, Thea was convinced that Buddhism, if updated and restored to its core teachings and practices, could truly help relieve suffering in society and offer a nonviolent path to peace, prosperity, and independence from the colonizing powers. As a young monk, Thea was very drawn to some of the modern Buddhist writings of that time that talked about a socially conscious ideal of Buddhism, something like an equivalent to the social gospel that caught on in some corners of Christianity in the 20th century. This was the idea that Buddhism wasn't just meant to be about contemplation and achieving enlightenment, but also very much about relieving the suffering of others and reducing the suffering in society. Later, Thich coined the term engaged Buddhism to reflect some of his own teachings and ideals on how to be a Buddhist who also worked towards social justice and peace in the world. Reflecting on those ideals, in 1949, when he was 23, he took the name Thich Nhat Hanh. Thich is the first name taken by Vietnamese Buddhist monastics. Nhat Hanh translates to one action. So he was a Vietnamese Buddhist monk devoted to one action, and he saw everything he did, whether meditating, teaching Dharma, writing, or alleviating suffering in the world. He saw it all as one action. Another part of Thay's one action was writing poetry. Shortly after his name change and ordination, he published his first books of poetry, which were very well received. They were largely about his experiences of loss and the war. His poetry is the way that he is best known for some, even to this day. In 1954, the war between the French and the Viet Minh finally concluded, and the country was split, as many of you know, into North and South Vietnam, with North Vietnam being communist and South Vietnam, supported by the United States, being very capitalist. So it was still a turbulent time. South Vietnam, where Thich was, favored Catholicism from the days of French colonial rule, and Buddhism was increasingly ostracized. In the late 1950s, Thich had some times of poor health, including what he would later describe as a time of depression. In addition to some traditional Western medicine, he felt that his practice of mindful breathing and walking meditation helped him to come through this period. In 1959, he became aware of the extensive writings that there were on Buddhism in the English language, and so he resolved to learn English in a year, which he did. By 1961, he received a Fulbright scholarship to study at Princeton Theological Seminary, and he loved his 2 years there, free from the war and the tumult of life in Vietnam. And he considered it an important part of his spiritual formation because he said this was the first time he got to taste fully living in a moment of pure happiness. As violence was escalating again in Vietnam, Thich found himself as a spokesperson for peace from afar. By 1963, Buddhist monks and nuns were being disappeared in Vietnam. He also read of monks in Vietnam and priests, monks and nuns rather in Vietnam, who were self-immolating. And he wrote the poem, "The Fire That Consumes My Brother," which included these lines: "The fire that burns you burns my flesh with such pain that all my tears are not enough to cool your sacred soul. Deeply wounded, I remain here, keeping your hopes and your promises for the young. I will not betray you. Are you listening? I remain here because your very heart is now my own." His resolve to work for peace was strengthened, and by 1964, he answered the call to return to Vietnam in spite of the horrors. He became a leader in the Buddhist movement for peace in Vietnam. He founded the School of Youth for Social Services in Saigon, a grassroots effort to rebuild bombed villages, resettle families, set up schools and medical centers, and more. Thich did not believe in taking a side in war. He believed that adopting ideologies eventually led and fed into the cycle of violence. He wanted the North and the South to communicate. By not picking a side, he was much misunderstood at the time, and got criticism from all sides. While he was a pacifist, he was not passive in the least. As he wrote in his book, Peace is Every Step, when I was in Vietnam, so many of our villages were being bombed. Along with my monastic brothers and sisters, I had to decide what to do. Should we continue to practice in our monasteries, or should we leave the meditation halls in order to help the people who were suffering under the bombs? After careful reflection, we decided to do both, to get out and help people, and to do so in mindfulness. We called it engaged Buddhism. Mindfulness, he said, must be engaged. Once there is seeing, there must be acting. Otherwise, what is the use of seeing? In 1966, he received an invitation from Cornell University to give lectures on Buddhism and the situation in Vietnam. And so he traveled to the United States to try to change some Western minds. And he received invitations then to speak all over the country, and in fact, in about 20 different countries. And he thought this was just going to be a relatively short lecture tour. But as it turned out, as the most prominent Buddhist peace activist, he was not allowed to return to Vietnam. And in fact, he was in exile and didn't return to his homeland again, was not allowed to again for 39 years. In 1967, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., after having been inspired by Thea to speak out against the war in Vietnam, nominated Thea for the Nobel Peace Prize, saying, "This gentle Buddhist monk from Vietnam is a scholar of immense intellectual capacity. His ideas for peace, if applied, would build a monument to ecumenicism, to world brotherhood, to humanity." And these two great leaders influenced each other greatly for the next year or so before King's assassination. They both worked on something like Gandhi's concept of satyagraha, trying through nonviolent action to hold on to the truth and find ways of bringing people on different sides to the truth without either party feeling like the loser, with the goal that ultimately they could become friends, not enemies. In 1982, Thea and his students established a modest rustic center from an old farm in southwest France, naming it Plum Village. Eventually, it became the largest Buddhist retreat center in the Western world. He continued to teach and write. In the end, he published more than 100 books. And he continued to practice engaged Buddhism. Eventually, his thinking also led him to work for ecology, for the earth, and he did not eat animal products as part of his overall efforts to reduce suffering and live a life of nonviolence. In 2014, when he was 89, Thea suffered a stroke, and he was never able to speak again. But he continued to lead and communicate, apparently very effectively, using just his left hand and his eyes. In 2018, he asked to return from France to Vietnam, to the temple where he first became a novice monk. And so he lived there for the remainder of his days. Obviously, one sermon cannot begin to do justice to Thich Nhat Hanh, let alone to all of his writings and teachings. I do think of his primary teachings as being about mindfulness, living in the moment, compassion, being, peace. And of course, all of these teachings intermingle as well. For our call to worship this morning, you heard some words, some excerpts from his 1987 book, Being Peace. One of his most influential books was published in 1975, called The Miracle of Mindfulness, an introduction to the practice of meditation. That book was translated into more than 30 languages and went a long way toward introducing mindfulness practices to the Western world. He encouraged us, as he always did, to be present to the miracle of the world around us. He wrote, "Every day we are engaged in a miracle which we don't even recognize. A blue sky, white clouds, green leaves, the black, curious eyes of a child, our own two eyes. All is a miracle," he wrote. In 1991, he published the book, Peace is Every Step, The Path of Mindfulness in Everyday Life. He wrote, "The roots of war are in the way we live our daily lives, the way we develop our industries, build up our society, and consume goods. Let us look at wealth and poverty," he wrote. "The affluent society and the deprived society inter-are. The wealth of one society is made of the poverty of another. Wealth is made from non-wealth elements, and poverty is made by non-poverty elements. So we must be careful not to imprison ourselves in concepts. The truth is that everything contains everything else. We cannot just be, we can only interbe. We are responsible for everything that happens around us," he wrote. "We will not just say, 'I love him very much,' but instead, 'I will do something so that he will suffer less.' The mind of compassion is truly present when it is effective in removing another person's suffering." And so in today's context of the Russian war in the Ukraine, it's impossible not to wonder what Thea would have said and done in response, particularly thinking back to the years before his stroke. I do know that he would respond with compassion, and he would want to work to alleviate the suffering of those harmed by the war. Beyond that, I don't feel that it's fair for me to speculate, but it does make me feel his absence all the more. As to his own death, he would remind us, as he once said in an interview, "The Buddha taught that there is no birth, there is no death, there is no coming, there is no going, there is no same, there is no different. There is no permanent self, there is no annihilation. We only think there is." Thea continues on as he ever did. He lives on in all of us, in our breathing, in our walking, in our smiling. May he ever live on in our mindful working towards social justice and alleviating suffering. May it be so. Blessed be, and amen. Thank you. I am going to invite you to rise and body your spirit as you are willing and able for our closing words. Ordinarily, in the before times, we held hands at this time, but I invite you, if you're here with somebody in your pod, to please feel free to hold hands. And otherwise, I invite you to put your hands out and feel the energy between us. And for those of you online as well, I invite you to put your hands out, perhaps to the edge of your screen, and feel that energy between us all for our closing words. Thich Nhat Hanh said, "Mother Earth is very talented. She has produced Buddhas, bodhisattvas, and great beings." She certainly produced a wonderful bodhisattva in Thich Nhat Hanh. And she produced you. I am so grateful for the miracle of life, the miracle of lives well lived as the one we remembered this morning. I am so grateful for this community and the community beyond, and all that we can do together in mindfulness. May we walk with peace in every step. Blessed be, and amen.
Thank you.